Hello and good evening. On behalf of Will, West Hampton College, and the Women's Studies program at the University of Richmond, we'd like to welcome you to the program tonight. My name is Lori Hofer, and I'm the junior class representative for Will.
And I'm Brandy Jackson, and I'm also a junior in Will. Before we continue, we'd like to thank the following departments and offices for their generous contributions to bring us this wonderful speaker tonight. The President's Office, the Provost's Office, the Office of the Vice President for Student Affairs, the School of Arts and Sciences, the Office of Multicultural Affairs, Jefferson School of Leadership Studies, American Studies,
the History Department, the Music Department, the Political Science Department, the Sociology Department, Speech Communications, Theater and Dance, Cultural Affairs, the Robbins Foundation, and the Richmond Peace Education Center. We'd also like to give a special thanks to Holly Blake, Allison Kimmick, Juana Hines, and Allison Marsh for their hard work to make tonight's program a reality.
Before we introduce our speaker, we'd like to draw your attention to 3 upcoming events that might also interest you. Dr. Phyllis Bones in January, Dr. Stephanie Kuntz in February, and Sweet Honey in the Rock in February. Please see the information that was given to you for further details.
Following Dr. Reagan's presentation tonight, she'll be taking questions from the audience. To be sure that your questions are heard by everyone, please step forward to the microphone in the center of the aisle. Immediately following the question and answer session, there'll be a table located here in the front of the chapel with books, CDs, and cassettes for sale, which Dr. Reagan will be happy to autograph. Also, Dr. Reagan would appreciate it if people would not take photos, flash or otherwise.
In the words of Dr. Reagan, the civil rights movement was the most wonderful thing I experienced in my life. Day by day, I found courage to be who I was. This was different from who people wanted me to be. Finding courage, taking risks. There was something about doing things that I had always been told would kill or ruin you. Well, I did get suspended, and I did go to jail. Things I had been told to avoid at all costs. I saw people die, so I knew that some risks could kill. But I found that if you avoided everything that was a risk, there would be many things you never know about yourself.
Dr. Bernice Johnson Reagon is a renowned historian, activist, and musician, and the founder and artistic director of Sweet Honey in the Rock. She is titled as Distinguished Professor of History at American University and Curator Emerita at the Smithsonian Institution's National Museum of American History. Dr. Reagan was actively involved in the Civil Rights Movement. As the field secretary for the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, or SNCC, she worked closely with Ella Baker, another political activist of this era. She also served as a member of the SNCC Freedom Singers. The Freedom Singers sang at hundreds of rallies during the 1960s, reporting on news and issues of the movement. These experiences greatly influenced Dr. Reagan's later works.
Her publications include Voices of the Civil Rights Movement, African American Freedom Songs, 1960 to 1965, and We'll Understand It Better by and by, African American Pioneering Gospel Composers. She has served as consultant, composer, and performer for several film and video projects, including 2 award-winning programs for PBS, Eyes on the Prize and We Shall Overcome. As curator at the Smithsonian Institution, Reagan served as principal scholar, conceptual producer, and host of the path-breaking 1994 National Public Radio series, Wade in the Water, African American Sacred Music Traditions. Most recently, she has served as composer and compiler of the sound score for WGBH's Africans in America film series, which begins broadcast on PBS this fall.
And finally, please join us in welcoming Dr. Bernice Johnson Reagon.
They say that freedom is a constant struggle. They say that freedom is a constant struggle. They say that freedom is a constant struggle. Oh Lord, we've struggled so long. We must be free. We must be free. They say that freedom is a constant dying. They say that freedom is a constant dying. They say that freedom is a constant dying. Oh Lord, we've died so long. We must be free. We must be free. I heard that song the first time in 1964. And when I asked, where did it come from? People were unsure when it began. They remembered when they knew it was there. It was a song that they sang on an Ohio campus where young people were being trained to go to Mississippi during the summer of '64. It was not one of the first songs they sang. The song did not come up until the report came that 3 civil rights workers were missing around Philadelphia, Mississippi. One was James Chaney. He was black and from Mississippi. Then there was Andrew Schwerner, the experienced member of the trio. He and his wife, Rita, worked with the Congress of Racial Equality. Then there was Michael Goodman, one of the young people who had volunteered to go to Mississippi during the summer. The idea was that it was time for black people in Mississippi to fully participate in the politics of the country, and that if we could get enough people to go to Mississippi and make sure quite a few of them were white, more of us would survive the summer. And here, before the bus pulls out from the training session, is a sign from Mississippi that says, if you come here registering black people to vote, we will kill you. The song rose up among those who continued to go through the training session. They were told by the trainers, and I'm saying it in this way because I was not present. They were told by the trainers that they should reconsider going to Mississippi for the summer, and that it would not be a negative if they decided not to go. And the song rose up and rapped everybody up. And in spite of all of the reconsidering, when the buses pulled out, headed for Mississippi, everybody was on the bus. When the report came that the 3 workers were missing, a car with volunteers left Ohio and slipped into Mississippi, conducting their own search all night long. There was also an official search waged. At one point, Rita Swerner stated that had not James Chaney disappeared with her husband and Michael Goodman, there might not be a search going on. And indeed, as they dragged some of the rivers of Mississippi, they turned up bodies of black men no one had ever searched for. When they found the 3 men, the families of Andrew Swerner and Michael Goodman requested that their sons be buried in Mississippi with James Chaney. It did not happen because although they had been killed together in Mississippi, it was against the law for them to be buried together. This was Philadelphia, Mississippi, and it was also the place that President Ronald Reagan chose to announce that he was running for a second term as president. That's what I said. And you know, if you walk around in Washington, D.C. with the name Reagan, you go through a lot. Out of this tragedy came another song. This song was built on a phrase in a speech by Ella Baker. Miss Baker was angry that civil rights organizers could be killed for trying to help black people vote in Mississippi in the United States of America. But she also was angry about the racism that was very clear in this tragedy. And she said in a speech, until the killing of black men, black mother's son, is as important as the killing of white men, white mother's sons. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until this happens. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Until the killing of black men, black mothers' sons, is as important as the killing of white men, white mother's son. We who believe in freedom. I wrote this song. It's called Ella's Song. It's a theme for a film about Miss Baker, produced by Joanne Grant, called Funding. All the verses in this song come out of things I heard Miss Baker say. In 1980, at a conference on the civil rights movement I organized at the Smithsonian, she said, "That which touches me most is that I had a chance to work with people. My mother worked with people. I have been working with people since I was 6 years old." And it was an incredible statement to me because I was very interested in the seamlessness there was in her idea of what her life was about. And I kept thinking after that about your work being working with people. And what she talked about was the importance for her to always be involved in some kind of activity that had her working, trying to help people address the things they needed to address so that they could live their lives in a different quality way. That which touches me most is that I had a chance to work with people, passing on to others that which was passed on to me. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. Baker believed that young people had sharper vision and had more courage than older people. She believed that young people should be supported and encouraged to think and talk with each other and anybody else who would listen about their lives and the world they lived in from their perspective. They needed to be seen by older people as potential leaders and analysts needed in order for the universe to survive what older people have done to the universe. This is not to say that Ms. Baker thought that older people should disappear and that we were not needed. But it was very clear during the civil rights movement that she felt that young people were the cutting edge. And young people needed to be listened to and to be heard, and the strategies that young people came up with ought to be tested. And old people should support them and try to underwrite and fund or help to make possible situations where young people could actually try out their ideas in terms of addressing racism in this country. To me, young people come first. They have the courage where we fail. And if I can but shed some light as they carry us through the gales, the older I get, the better I know that the secret of my going on is when the reins are in the hands of the young who dare to run against the storm. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Then there's the Ella Baker, who was a leader who did not need to be in front. did not need to be the first and the head. She actually understood leadership as that part of the body that created and maintained the infrastructure of the organization that was needed to carry out the movement. It really turned things upside down for me because I had thought about leaders as people who were called presidents. Or ministers. And she was pointing to the people who put in all of the work to keep the church going, to keep the boycott going, to keep the movement going. She said this was leadership. And what was really interesting about it was that there were so many more leaders that way. Not needing to clutch for power, not needing the light just to shine on me. I need to be just one in the number as we stand against tyranny. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Sometimes we are very caught with who we are and how much our work needs to be directly focused on bringing about measurable results in our lifetime. Like, I'm in school, I'm going to get a degree, I'm going to get a job, then I can leave home, get my apartment and a car if I don't have it already, and then get promotions and maybe a husband or a wife or a same-sex partner, and we can buy a house and then be successful before I die. Miss Baker and Little Brother Montgomery and Native American futurists put out another image. Miss Little Brother Montgomery says, we all come here naked, which really in a racist society like this is really startling, because if you come to yourself as a black person, you really do get the sense that a lot of the white people you meet must actually be born with all their clothes on or something. I mean, there's got to be something that is uniquely different. And Little Brother Montgomery said, we all come here naked. And he's describing a leveling ground that says there is absolutely no reason he can see that anybody would assume that for some reason they come here and that automatically puts them in a different position from somebody else who comes here naked. The other thing he says is that while you are here working for yourself, you need to make arrangements for somebody else. And then there is the 7-generation challenge that comes out of Native American tradition. That I should live my life so that 7 generations in the future will have a chance to live a life. Ella Baker says, struggling myself. My struggles are not as important as teaching other people to struggle. That if I want the things I believe in to survive, I must teach other people to struggle, because there's no way anything I do in my life will be enough to carry forth my beliefs beyond my puny, brief time. Struggling myself don't mean a whole lot, I've come to realize. Teaching others to stand up and fight is the only way my struggle survives. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. The last time I saw Miss Baker was at a birthday party a year before she died, and she was sort of in and out. And she said things in segments. One thing she said a lot was, I'm sitting in the loving arms of Jesus. It was very interesting to me because I had never heard Miss Baker talk about Jesus before in my life. Then she said, I'm a small woman. I've always been a small woman with a big voice. And sometimes I could be difficult. And I thought about the Ella Baker, who was the executive director, the first executive director of the organization founded by Martin Luther King, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. It was primarily an organization of black ministers. Now, can you imagine being a strong black woman in the 50s, late 50s, trying to run an organization of black ministers, many of whom didn't think there was much they ever had to hear from a woman? Many of these ministers were black and Baptists, and they never let women in their pulpits unless it was Women's Day. Then in some Baptist churches, you couldn't even get in the pulpit then. You had to speak down on the floor. I'm a woman who speaks in a voice, and I must be heard. At times I can be quite difficult, I'll bow to no man's word. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Good evening. How are you tonight? Good evening. It's an honor to be here. And it's 150 years from 1848 and the Seneca Falls meeting where women gathered to talk about women's rights in American society. I had the opportunity of being in Seneca Falls at the time the National Park Service opened the new exhibition there a few years ago. And my experience there, I think, is important, because when you study the women's movement from the 19th century, you find first, many of the women who were white who went to those meetings were also abolitionists. Many of the black women who were also abolitionists participated sometimes with the women's movement. One courageous woman was Sojourner Truth, but there were times when women did not come together. One story about Sojourner that happened before this meeting shows that she thought that women were women and had the potential of coming together out of that experience across race and status. So when she found that her son, who was 6, had been illegally sold, shipped to Alabama against the state law in New York, where did she go first? She went to Miss Dumont, who was the wife of Mr. Dumont, who had owned her. Miss Dumont was a mother. And Sojourner said, "How could you send my child to Alabama?" And Miss Dumont said, "How is it you making all of this racket about a nigger?" Then she went to Miss Getney, who was the mother of the bride who had married the Alabama planter, which is how the 6-year-old boy had been sent down to Alabama, sort of as a gift of sorts to this new married couple. She goes to Miss Getney to say, "I have to get my son back." Miss Getney said, "What you keeping up such a racket about him? My daughter is down there. My precious daughter is in Alabama." So Sojourner said, "Your daughter is grown and she's married. My son is too young to be separated." Well, Sojourner had to leave these 2 women, shaking their heads at her foolishness, because she failed to reach them through class and racism. Somehow, they could not see Peter, 6, as a mother's child. When I went to Seneca Falls, I had, before going, communicated with those who were working on the exhibition, and they were using some quotes from me. And when I looked at the exhibit, I noticed that some people had their names under their quotes, but none of mine quotes had my name. So I asked the lady, who was the head of the exhibition, I said, "Why isn't my name under my quotes?" She said, "Well, we just put the names under the dead women." I said, "Why?" She said, "It was just a decision we made." I said, "I'll bet." Now, the other thing that happened that day was there was an opening ceremony And the opening ceremony had the head of the National Park Service, and they conducted the whole opening ceremony, and I'm inside waiting to be called out. Those people did their opening ceremony. They're all white, mostly male, you know, the National Park Service. And then they leave. And then I come out to do my speech. There were some women in the audience who were furious because they had sat during the opening and they sat during my presentation. During my presentation, I was outside, and during my presentation, workers never stopped crossing behind me as I gave my speech. And I thought, the women's movement really needs some work. So that one of the things I think women who are women, women who are female, females who are women, might ask themselves is, really, is there any way we can reach across ethnic group, race, and class and come together and move as women? Really. You know, because you are socialized by your cultural group. Now, if you're going to look across that cultural group and see some female adult in another cultural group that's got all sorts of baggage for you because of what you've been taught about them, the question is it really possible? To what extent can you challenge yourself? Can I challenge myself to look at a woman and see a woman like me, or a woman not like me, but actually understand that there are some shared experiences that can potentially bond us together in our society around issues to create a better world for us. And you know, the status of a society is directly related to the condition of women and the condition of children. If you want to know how the United States of America is doing, don't look at the banks or the stock market. Look at women and children. In another contemporary way, we come to our time out of a civil rights movement that suggested that all you have to do to take a stand is to begin to act as if you are free. Let me tell you a little bit more about this. If you are 4 freshmen at A&T in Greensboro, and you convince yourself that you are free and you are a citizen, and you actually have money for a coat, all you do is just walk out on it and go downtown and sit at the lunch counter. So sometimes people say, how do we take a stand? How do we risk? All you have to do is act as if you live in a whole, balanced, open society. All you have to do, if you're Bernice, is go to the library in Albany, Georgia, as if you need to go to the library to do some work, and they lock it up. So that the change occurs first in you. The change occurs first when you decide to disobey many of the things you're taught about getting along in the world, keeping the peace in your family. Many of the things we are taught actually positions us to live our lives without changing the world we live in. It's a disease that older people have. It's what we teach our children, especially if we love them, because we don't want Bernice to get killed going down to some library that we know she's not going to get in. So it's very important as responsible parents to say they lynch black men who go to Mississippi. They lynch in '64 white men who go to Mississippi, talking about getting black people to register to vote. There are some places you can conduct a voter registration campaign in the United States of America in '64. But if it's black people you're trying to get to register to vote, you are in danger if you decide you're going to do that in Mississippi. So there are many, many people who would teach you where the line is. One of the things that happen once you decide that you are not going to be obedient about things that you don't think make sense. And I've talked to the 4 freshmen at Greensboro, and I asked them, how is it they decided to go to the 10-cent store and sit at that lunch counter? And they said it was not immediate. They actually met night after night in the dorm, talking to each other about it and praying about it before they could rent the courage to get up and go down and do it. But the first person that had to be changed was not the 10-cent store. In fact, you're not in charge of the 10-cent store. You're not in charge of the registrar's office. You're only in charge of yourself and your behavior. So if you have been obeying, or if you have been silent when things have gone on that are not resonant with your sense of fairness, then the first person you have to affect is yourself. And once you change yourself, you could actually decide never to go back. And then you have a whole different life ahead of you. Yeah, you could get killed, but sometimes not. I think all of the time of a woman named Harriet Tubman, who was born in 1820, who died of old age in the 20th century. Sometimes when I think of her, I say she breathed in the same century I did. Harriet Tubman was a failure as a slave. From the time, I know you've got children like this, some of you who have children. You got 3 children, and then one of them you just pray for all the time. Because 2 of them sort of are getting it. They sort of know where the lines are, and they sort of stay inside of the lines. And you think you can let them out of the house, and they probably will come back alive. But then there's that other one where you just pray, you light candles, you send the angels, because you never know. Because when the child came out, the child was not paying attention to the path that was designed for the child. Well, that was Harriet Tubman. She was in trouble. And when you think about Sojourner's son being sent to Alabama at 6, this is not to visit grandma, but this is to work. Harriet Tubman was working by the time she was 6. She was being beaten every day. And I don't mean just light whippings. I mean beaten to the point of being injured and having to be sent back home because she was not able to work anymore. She was working in the big house, and when she was 12, she said, I don't want to work in the big house anymore. And they sent her, as she requested, to the field. And I'm trying to figure out, what is a 12-year-old? How does a 12-year-old have a life where you come to make that decision? Harriet Tubman, I was told, could not read or write. I was told she was a conductor on the Underground Railroad. I was told that she never lost a passenger. I was told she carried a gun and told black people if they wanted, they had a choice. They could go forward or die. But they did not have a third choice of turning back. She said she never lost a passenger, but sometimes I said, well, maybe we don't know. She probably wouldn't tell us if she had to kill one of us because we were insisting that we were going to go back. She also said that she could have rescued a lot more of us if we had known we were slaves. And she used songs in her work. For me, I came to an understanding of singing in jail, but studying the life of Harriet Tubman and finding that when she left the plantation, she sang a song. And she sang a song that people heard, but they would hear differently in the morning when they discovered she was no longer there. And reading that, it was very interesting because I got a chance to experience delayed listening so that when you hear it today, you hear it with the person you are, and you hear it tomorrow, and your world has changed because your daughter is gone. And what you're left with was the last sound of her voice, and it's a song. And for me as a singer, it said the stage does not have to be the concert stage. You can actually use your songs any place you need them. And they say that on that plantation, people held on to that song for a long time. One of the songs that Tubman refers to when she sends a message south that she's headed south again to get another band of black people and to lead them to freedom is O Ship of Zion. And she says, tell them the old ship of Zion is getting ready to sail, and they better get ready. 'Tis the old ship of Zion 'tis the old ship of Zion, 'tis the old ship of Zion. Get on board, get on board. The first time I heard the song, it was a church song, and the ship of Zion was the ship of Zion sinners were supposed to get on in order to be saved. That's what the song was about. The song did not turn into a resistance song until I heard about its use by Harriet Tubman. And then everything in the song sounded different. It will carry you through danger. It will carry you through danger. It would sound better if you sang it. It will carry, in harmony, you through danger. Get on board, get on board. It has landed many a thousand. It has landed many a thousand. It has landed many a thousand. Get on board, get on board. Is the old ship of Zion, 'tis the old ship of Zion, 'tis the old ship of Zion. Get on board, get on board. When I got arrested in Albany, Georgia, I didn't go to jail naked. I actually was clothed in lots of stuff I didn't realize I had. And so one day I would find myself singing, I'm on my way to freedom land. I'm on my way to freedom land. I'm on my way to freedom land. I'm on my way, great God, I'm on my way. Now, I knew that song first as Canaan Land. But more important than that verse for me was the ones that say, if you don't go, don't hinder me. If you don't go, don't hinder me. If you don't go, don't hinder me. I'm on my way, great God, I'm on my way. I also like the one that says, if you don't go, going anyhow. If you don't go, If you don't go, going anyhow. I'm on my way. Great God, I'm on my way. Now these two verses came after verses that says, I asked my mother come and go with me. I asked my pastor come and go with me. I asked my brother, my sister. And then after you asked all of those people, then you needed that, if you don't go, don't hinder me. If you don't go, I'm going anyhow. There is no way that in any movement I have ever been in that all of the people participated. The participants tend to be a minority of the community. Most of the people don't participate in the movement. And I know it looked like there was a lot of us, but most of us were at home or on the job. So, understanding that if you start to act as if you are a first-class responsible citizen of your community, that you will often feel as if you're in the minority, is one of the first things you learn when you decide you're going down to the dime store to get a Coke. But the other thing that happens is that in Greensboro, that was not the end. Sometimes when you change yourself and begin to behave differently, somebody else sees it. Bob Moses said it was the first time he had seen black people on the front page of the New York Times like that. Not black people, but young black men. And it changed his life. It changed his sense of what he could do with his life. This is the same Bob Moses who went south, went to Mississippi, was the primary organizer of the Mississippi Project, who is today the head of something called the Algebra Project, dedicated to helping young people who are outside of the math, science, language in which the future universe will speak. Help them to enter that world. In Greensboro, not only was Bob Moses in New York touched, but the next time these people went to the 10-cent store, they had some people with them. So sometimes your actions, which should start as much as possible with as big a crowd as you can find, 2 or 3 at least, sometimes you will look around and you will have more people than you know what to do with, like the first march in Albany, Georgia. They had arrested 2 students for buying their tickets at the white bus station ticket window. And the students refused to pay bond, so they were in jail. And on campus, we decided to march in support of them. There were a few of us, and we decided we were going to get more students. We went around to classes, and we asked if we could make an announcement. And we announced we're going to march downtown in support of Blanton and Bertha, and we would like for everybody to meet in 5 minutes. And we got to the meeting place, and it was still just us. And we started out, I was walking with Annette, and I was so scared, I thought I was going to die. If you're black, you have this thing in the South. that black people don't really faint. This is in the folklore. White people faint at the drop of a hat. We thought white people faint because they have thick skin. Black people don't faint because our skin is thin. Isn't that something? That day, I thought I was going to faint because I didn't think my legs would actually move in front of the other. And I don't know how I got up the hill. And then Annette says, Bernice, look back. Well, I knew if I looked back, I would run back. This is like really admitting that sometimes when you start to act as if you are going to change your life, you really are acting as if you are not all there. And I refused to look back. And she said, Bernice, look back. I finally turned around and looked back. And as far as I could see, there were students. Still, most of the students were in their classes. But there were a lot of students. There must have been about 100 students, as far as I could see. And I swear 10 minutes before, they were not there. And then the leaders of the march really got scared because they didn't know what to do with us. This was the first march in Albany, Georgia, where we were walking in the street, and it wasn't the Thanksgiving parade or the homecoming parade. And we were headed across the Flint River Bridge, and we were going to protest at the City Hall, which also has the jail behind it. And we went there and we circled City Hall twice. And then we headed back to Albany State College, knowing we would not be able to get back on that campus because the administration was absolutely against this kind of behavior. Where did we end up? Somebody tell me. Church. Union Baptist Church. Reverend Boyd was the pastor. He says, you can meet here. There are a lot of things I knew about Reverend Boyd, but I didn't know he was waiting for a movement. And I didn't know he was waiting for a bunch of students to be coming back from circling City Hall, not being able to go back to the campus. I didn't know that Reverend Boyd would let us in, but he did. And again, we saw that sometimes. That the minister or the mother of the church or the head of the deacon board would say, here, you can come here, you can meet here, and you can plan your next step here in this church. This, too, is the work of the Lord. We get into the church, and Charlie Jones says, Bernie, sing a song. Well, I had just done my first march. Why did I have to sing a song? But I'm one of those people who socialize to, you ever heard somebody when you tell them what to do, it becomes their obligation? It's a disease I'm curing myself of. I don't do that so much anymore. But back then, if you told me, Bernice, do something, and it was possible, it then became my job. I opened my mouth and I sang, over my head. And I was immediately in trouble. Because the song says, over my head, I see trouble in the air. Well, we had just marched around the jail twice, and I really couldn't say to these people gathered as their song leader that they were in as much trouble as we were in. So I had right up this line, over my head, I see freedom in the air. It was the first time I had taken a sacred song that had been passed to me from slavery and had the audacity to flip a word in it. That came because my life had moved. And in that act, I actually felt I got permission to really use the songs that had been passed to me. Over my head, oh I see freedom in the air over my head. I see freedom in the air. There must be, oh God, somewhere. By the time I got through the first line, everybody was singing, and we sang until we were quiet enough to begin to talk. And I saw the song make a space so that there could be a meeting. I discovered later something about the trouble, because there are several songs that has trouble in it, and it sounds as if it's all right that it is trouble. Like wade in the water, God's gonna trouble the water. Over my head, I see trouble in the air. There must be a God somewhere if I see trouble in the air. And I began to understand that sometimes, if you want to change your situation, you have to go through trouble. You have to be willing to be in trouble, go through trouble, and if you get to the other side, you will meet yourself transformed in some way. And I got a taste in my soul during those days that I've never lost. There's something with me that is very constant in my commitment to maintain a pact with that experience. And what it has meant is that struggle is constant. Struggle is hard. Struggle is sometimes fun and sweet. And struggle is the evidence that you're not dead. If you can get up in the morning and find that you can stand one more day, saying what you believe and living your life so that people can look at you and know where you stand, that's a state of constant struggle that will occasionally get you into trouble, but will also lead you to the strongest you can be. They say that freedom is a constant struggle. They say that freedom is a constant struggle. They say that freedom is a constant struggle. Oh Lord, we've struggled so long. We must be free, we must be free. Thank you.